Greetings and salutations. You've successfully arrived at the Bloody Disgusting Network. The passage of time will now bring you to something strange, unique, and idiosyncratic. Have a good time.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast. I'm your host today, Editor-in-Chief Michael Monroeville Mall Roffman. And as you could tell from the ad that you just heard, we're talking about If It Bleeds, the new Stephen King novel, or should I say book? I'll just say book because it's not really a novel. It's a collection of novellas, and you've heard us talk about three of them. We talked about Mr. Harrigan's Phone. We talked about The Life of Chuck, and we talked about Rat. And you could hear all of that in last week's episode. And you'd notice that it says part 2 in the title of this episode. So, I mean, come on. What are you doing here? But anyway, we saved the biggest story for just a singular episode, the titular story, actually, If It Bleeds, because it's got Holly Gibney in it. And we're going to be talking all about Holly Gibney because this is technically her first straightforward story where it's just hers to own and not not anyone else's. So we thought it would be appropriate to have just a Holly-centric episode because, look, she's, I'm going to say, quote-unquote, fan favorite character because I've heard too many differing opinions to keep her in the upper echelon with, the Roland Deschaines, the Randall Flaggs, who's another recurring character?
Alan Pangborn,
all men. So I feel very bad saying that. But either way, we're going to be talking about this story. We're going to be talking about Holly Gibney, and we're going to close out our coverage of If It Bleeds, which has honestly been quite a delight hearing the quarantine and the pandemic. And I'm just very glad this happened around this time because, I couldn't have handled a really, really bad book. And I think this is actually a pretty good book. But anyway, I've talked and I've rambled. Let's introduce our quartet for today. Here in Chicago with me, but not actually with me, across town, we have...
Hey, it's rockin' Randall Poop Colburn.
Ew.
Oh no.
This is a reference to the fact that Holly says poopy a lot in the book.
She does.
I'm not just a little baby, although I do find poop humor funny because I'm always a little boy at heart. And I apologize for I live on a busy street, so you might hear a little bit of vroom vroom outside, even though they should be home, not spreading the disease to the rest of the world.
Zoom. I like that commercial. I believe we've made a reference to that commercial in the past episodes, although it could be locked away. Who knows? You never know. Well, Randall, are you excited?
Yeah.
Are you excited to talk about Holly?
Hell yeah.
Well,
what can I say? I love Holly. She's my favorite character in the entire King canon. That's not true, but I actually I have a lot of thoughts about If It Bleeds that I think will, maybe be a little different from some other people's. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting topic because we have basically 3 different versions of Holly that exist, and it'll be fun to sort of break that down because this is, as you say, she's ready for her spotlight, as they say.
Yeah.
So with If It Bleeds. So
Todd McCarthy.
So yeah, fun to discuss. Sign me up. Here I am.
Here I am, rock you like a hurricane. Well, I'm going to go to a place where hurricanes don't... well, I guess they do technically exist. Down all the way in Texas, the deep heart of Texas, Austin specifically, we're zoning in on our Google Maps. Who is waving to us from down below?
Man, Randall took my only nickname I had, which is Dan Poopy Caffrey. But
mine was Poopy Poopy Poop Poop.
Yours is Rockin' Randall Poopy. I love it too, Mike. No. I love Mike says no hurricanes in Texas. We had like one of the worst
I
hurricanes.
know. I said you definitely. Yeah, I said you technically do, but you know.
I mean, Austin doesn't get them as bad as like Houston or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say the page I'm on page 256 of If It Bleeds for a very good reason that I'll bring up later on, and it says dumpster. Dumpster is capitalized though, so I'm just gonna say Dan Dumpster Caffrey.
Oh, nice alliteration.
I don't know if that's a typo. I don't know. Do you guys remember the word dumpster being capitalized throughout If It Bleeds?
I actually don't. I wonder if
No.
there's a significance to it.
It's a special dumpster.
Poppy, or Poppy. I'm calling her Poppy because of poopy. Now, I could see Holly. I could see Holly saying like, "Oh, that poopy dumpster," and King capitalizing it, so it's like a proper noun. But
Well, it
I think it's just a typo.
seems more like one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs, "An Insignificance." You know, Dan, we didn't really get to congratulate you too much on this podcast, but you just graduated.
I did, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I know.
How does it feel to be a high school grad?
Oh man, I'm so excited. I'm hoping to get into Phi Beta Kappa next year. The business grad. No, it feels great.
I'll
Actually,
let you in, but you'll be hazed.
Oh no. No, it actually it was weird. Like the past 2 weeks have been really great, and I mean seriously, like, it was actually nice to have that happen in the middle of a kind of crappy time, because it was like 2 weeks of pure happiness, and you guys and some other people put together this really nice video for me and all this stuff. But that being said, it's this week though, I feel like I'm feeling the sort of come down of that, of like, oh right, now I need to get a job, and the world is not a great place to get a job in right now.
You're in The Graduate, the last 5 seconds of The Graduate, when they're like, oh,
totally.
yeah,
And, hey, at least I got a really marketable degree.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always say. I say, I didn't double major for nothing. I double majored for really nothing. English and history, least marketable.
to quote political savior Andrew Cuomo, if you want to work, just get an essential job.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, no joke. I was, and I'm applying for some teaching jobs and applying for some playwriting things and whatnot, but those are all such long shots. They're not like things you can count on. But I was looking today at contact tracing jobs, and I think that would be kind of I think that'd be kind of a cool job. Like,
wait, what is it exactly?
You have to interact with people with the virus, like calling. I think it's through Zoom or just doing telephone calls, and you have to pretty much like get all their demographics and track who they've interacted with and when. So you can ideally you're like tracing the path of the virus.
Oh wow, that's actually kind of cool.
It's kind of fun,
Have you
like
considered that the virus travels through the internet?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the 5G. Yeah, I think it's gonna involve climbing a cell tower and call my boy Woody Harrelson and getting him to help me shoot the virus once. Yeah, I want to be like the kid at the end of Kindergarten Cop, like climb the tower. Call Woody.
They're my lasers.
My lasers.
Love that kid.
What are you doing? Don't go on the tower, Dominic. Dominic, no.
I love that you just make up lines from it. Don't go in the tower.
Don't go in the tower, Dominic. Come down.
It's not
Penelope's waiting for you.
It's not the virus. But no, in all seriousness, like it's been grad school's been awesome. It's been awesome to graduate, and I do find worth in my degree. But hey, if any contact tracers are listening out there, I'm your man. You can make a Stephen King book about me. And, it'll be fighting the virus.
You'll basically be the main character from Max Brooks's World War Z, which is a novel that was turned into a movie starring Brad Pitt. No, that was like the whole. That's basically his job. Like in the book is to kind of document like where the virus is tracing. So that would be kind of cool. You could kind of cosplay it every day too.
Cosplay, like dressing like I'll have to make sure I work out a lot to get my abs in great shape.
Just like eat nachos or like whatever he does all the time in like movies. Anyway, we're going off on a
eating. Flieger always talks about that, like how Brad Pitt's always eating, and it's usually stuff that's unhealthy for you. But I think it's because he just looks good no matter what he's doing, and
I know
he gives us this false hope that we too can eat a cup of noodles and nachos and still look like him.
How amazing would it be if you just like woke up tomorrow and you're Brad Pitt? I think about this all the time. Like if I just woke up and I'm like, holy shit, I have millions of dollars. I don't have to answer to anyone anymore. I am I was in Moneyball. And I'm friends with everyone.
I look great. Yeah, I look great.
And I still have my jacket from Fight Club. Anyway, we're going off too much tangent, and we have one more person to introduce. We're going to travel from Texas to another state that begins with T. I'm not talking about. I'm actually talking about Tennessee.
Not Kentucky.
I was trying to think of another state at once with the letter T in the beginning, and I couldn't think of it off the top of my head.
There's a great Lucero EP called Texas and Tennessee. So
yeah. Well, there we go.
Nice.
There's the connective tissue.
There's Idaho.
Tohio.
There really isn't
Ohio.
another state that starts with a T, is there?
I don't think
Illinois.
Texas, Tennessee.
so.
That's
Utah,
it.
Vermont. Yeah, sorry. I know them all alphabetically, but I can't remember how the alphabet goes.
Wow.
Utah. Yeah, I think that seems weird. You think there would be more?
I know.
I bet there's some really obvious one we're forgetting. And
I know.
Like, God, you guys are all.
Well, a lot
fucking
of those
morons.
T's are silent too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, who is this voice? And
Oh, sorry. Hey, this is Jenn. Hello, Holly Adams.
oh,
Oh, good.
Coming from
Good one.
Tennessee, where we usually don't get hurricanes until they're like level 1.
I was gonna say you
So
get
that's nice.
tornadoes, right?
We do get tornadoes. Yeah, we get around this time of year too.
Oh boy, yeah. You just
Yeah.
got a bad one during the pandemic too, which is scary.
We did, yeah. Right at
Yeah.
the week before the pandemic, we had a really bad one. So like schools were closed for a week, and then we went back, and it's like, oh yay, everything's great. And then the pandemic happened, and everything closed. So it was just a weird time. But
Well,
know.
speaking
Man.
of weird time, how are you doing down there in Nashville?
we're doing okay. Just kind of, I'm trying to pretend that people are not opening up as fast as they are, and we're just kind of hunkering down, and
Yeah.
so just kind of keeping on. So my boss has said we can continue to work at home if we want to. And
that's
I was
good.
like, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can watch more
So-
Shudder, more. What is the show that you're currently watching right now?
Okay, I'm on the fall season or the fall episode of Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life.
Nice.
So I've got like an hour left to find out what's going to happen, although I spoiled the whole thing by Googling earlier. But yeah, that's been my comfort background binge show while all of this craziness is going on. And when my kids are not around, I've been watching Halloween. So
Yeah.
I started
Ooh.
Halloween 6 today, which was
Yes.
the first watch for me.
Which
Yeah.
if you listen to our episode of one of our longer episodes of it, actually on the Halloweenies, we went crazy long on it because we actually
You guys
defended
just
it.
fucking love Halloween.
Yeah.
I
season.
do. I do.
Well, who was there? It's a point of contention. I can't remember if it was on here or on Halloweenies. I remember someone left a comment, like this enraged comment
Yeah.
about our opinions. They're guys. They like Halloween 6. They fucking like Halloween 6.
I know. Which
In
is,
all caps. Like he was so mad. Like I don't know who the hell
Was
it
it Paul Rudd that left it?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
Paul Stephen.
I just remembered like that. Like our high regard for that movie is infuriating to certain fans.
I just remember Kat Blackard. She was on that episode with us, and she was visiting in town, and I think it was one of the, like maybe the second to last days or something like that. And we had finished the episode, and we had started I think at like 10 a.m. and then like I think we finished around 4. And and we were like all like, I was like, well, I'm glad you happy you came up to visit. Like the whole day was spent in a fucking studio. But anyway, yeah, so that's a lot of fun. But you have you are keeping on because you're not only on the horror version, you're not only on the Losers Club, you occasionally guest on Halloweenies, but you now are adding another podcast to the fold, right?
Yes, really excited. We're still working out a lot of the details, but we're about to start a show called Psychoanalysis, where we are going to be talking about horror and mental health. And I'm so excited about it because those are like the two things that I could talk about forever.
Yeah, and you have a
Is it
fellow
gonna
loser on there
tie to,
too.
like
We do. Yeah, Laura Unnerstall is one of our co-hosts.
Oh, Laura mentioned that the other day.
Yeah.
And are you guys doing a specific movie for each episode, or is it more just kind of broader than that with each one?
Well, the first episode is going to be kind of an intro to like why people kind of gravitate towards horror during times of stress. But the overall structure is going to be every month we're going to have like a mental health theme. Like we're going to start with anxiety. And so we're going to have 2 episodes, and and each episode is going to be about that theme and how we see it represented in a movie.
It's very cool.
Interesting. I like it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and there's one other co-host. I guess we gotta announce it, right? I mean,
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's Mike Snoonian from The Pod and the Pendulum, and he is a mental health professional, so he's going to be kind of keeping us talking about stuff that is actually real and not just kind of talking about our own personal therapy all the time, although there will be some of Jenn's therapy talk. But we're really excited to bring him on. We all three just love talking about horror and how it kind of helps us, because I do think that, especially like to bring it back to If It Bleeds, like there's a lot that I really connected to and have talked about in therapy that I see in this book. And I've actually talked about If It Bleeds today in therapy and last week in therapy.
Well, you also talked about it in an exclusive essay that you could read of Jenn's that's in our newsletter currently right now. Not to turn that really nice, holistic discussion into a pitch, but Jenn, you wrote this an amazing essay all on If It Bleeds that you can find. Patreon subscribers will be able to get to read it, but I am just, it's great. It's a really long digression, not only just on If It Bleeds, but on King as a whole with his career arc and everything. But well, look, we're all here. The quartet is formed. Why don't we all get in the car, head on over to Finders Keepers? We're gonna skip the elevator. I have a feeling there's something tricky going on there, and
never get in that
elevator. And we're gonna go up. We're gonna use the stairwell, and then even though there seems to be something blocking it, but we'll get there.
Get there, Mike. Get there.
I know. Anyway, I'm gonna read the synopsis for If It Bleeds. Actually, I'm gonna read two things. One is the synopsis, and then two is the little excerpt that will give a nice stable setting for this story. If It Bleeds, according to the synopsis on Wikipedia, I didn't write the one this week just because I didn't want to miss out some details. A lot of details when it comes to Holly Gibney. Holly Gibney of the Finders Keepers Detective Agency is working on the case of a missing dog when she sees footage of a school bombing on TV. But when she tunes in again to the late night report, she realizes there's something not quite right about the correspondent who was first on the scene. Is this Movember? Soon she will find... That's not actually part of the synopsis. That was called an ad-lib. Soon she will find that she is not the only one to have suspicions about the reporter. In fact, Gibney is one of King's recurring characters, having appeared in the Bill Hodges trilogy, Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch, and in The Outsider. I added that last tidbit in there for our constant listeners who might be unclear who Holly Gibney is. I'm going to read this little excerpt that gives a nice context to the severity of this case and how it links to The Outsider, because obviously there are characters of Mr. Mercedes that are in this, but this really does connect to The Outsider. The excerpt. In January of 2021, a small padded envelope addressed to Detective Ralph Anderson is delivered to the Conrads, the Andersons' next-door neighbors. The Anderson family is on an extended vacation in the Bahamas, thanks to an endless teachers' strike in the Andersons' home county. Ralph insisted that his son bring him his books, which Derek termed a grotesque bummer. The Conrads have agreed to forward their mail until the Andersons return to Flint City, but printed on this envelope in large letters is, "Do not forward, hold for arrival." When Ralph opens the package, he finds a flash drive titled If It Bleeds, presumably referring to the old news trope which proclaims, if it bleeds, it leads. The drive contains two items. One is a folder containing photographs and audio spectrograms. The other is a kind of report, or spoken word diary, from Holly Gibney, with whom the detective shared a case that began in Oklahoma and ended in a Texas cave. It was a case that changed Ralph Anderson's perception of reality forever, and the final words of Holly's audio report are from an entry dated December 19th, 2020. She sounds out of breath. Well, I'm out of breath after reading that. And I think a few of us were out of breath after reading this the story, because this is kind of a dicey story for old Holly Gibney, because she's on her own. As I mentioned before, this is a straightforward story from Holly. Let's go around and just offer our kind of initial thoughts on this story and what we thought. Do we think this is an over and under sort of situation for Holly based on where she's been in before? I'm going to start with Randall.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought that this was the first book that I actually found myself invested in Holly, and that's good because she's the main character. But I've always struggled with this character, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that King seems to have willed her into this position that she's currently in, which is this sort of preternatural wunderkind investigator who doesn't really have training in this sort of thing, but is more of a savant, as you might say, a socially awkward savant. And because I always go back because I always feel like there must have been more in the beginning, because it's been so many years since I read Mr. Mercedes that I feel like, Holly must have had more of an entrance, but revisiting and reading synopses of that book and stuff, it's really just like Bill meets her at the funeral for Janie, who is a character in Mr. Mercedes, and they just bond, and she joins him on his mission. It's funny, I was watching a movie. There's a really shitty movie called McBain that's from from 1990, and it stars Christopher Walken, and it's funny because it's like The Simpsons McBain, but this is an actual real movie, and but it has nothing to do with The Simpsons McBain. It's very serious, but very, very bad and very funny because it's so bad. But one of the things about it that we like to make fun of is every time like somebody meets Christopher Walken's McBain, who is basically like a steel worker in New York who for some reason is chosen to lead a revolution in Colombia against like the evil drug warlord president. And but every time he meets somebody, they're basically like, I'll join you, like even if it doesn't make sense. And we find that very funny, and just the idea like, I'll join you. And so I always feel like Holly is just sort of this I'll join you character, where it's like, why are you joining Bill like in this thing, and it's like and so I think the origin story of Holly has always been an issue with me. I've never really bought why she I know a lot of it has to do with that she saw him as somebody who believed in her and comforted her in kind of a dark time, but this is somebody who in the books, she's older, she's in her 40s, I believe, and
I think so.
Yeah, and she's was more or less sort of repressed by her mother, and we see a lot of that in this book that I'll talk more about that. But she was really repressed most of her life, and then suddenly just sort of discovers this this nascent talent for being an investigator. And so I just don't really buy the character. I buy the character a lot more in the HBO series, where they kind of showed that it was, she had rough parents, but she always had these sort of weird preternatural sort of like intuitive talents from when she was very young, and clearly, and there isn't sort of the whole history of being repressed and being kind of shut away from the world like in the books, because that's always my issue. Like the Holly and the Outsider, the TV series, has been doing this, like this is something she does and gets paid for, and that's something I buy. And then also even in like these later books like The Outsider and even If It Bleeds, like she's more of a an administrative assistant. She's like a part-time investigator,
So I have a question on that. Don't you feel as if, and granted, I'm gonna full disclosure, and this is might strip me of my authority of being a co-host in this episode, but I have only really been acquainted with the Holly Gibney from Mr. Mercedes by Audience Network, everyone's favorite audience network. I only know that show, and then also HBO's The Outsider with Cynthia Erivo, and obviously this story. Now, based on my understanding of the character, it almost feels as if there's like the God, I don't want to sound awful saying this, but it almost feels like the Holly Gibney of like the Mr. Mercedes and also the books, with Mr. Mercedes is almost like kind of YA Holly Gibney, and like The Outsider and If It Bleeds Holly Gibney, and especially with Cynthia Erivo, almost feels like adult Holly Gibney. Like, is
Yeah,
that a fair?
I'd agree with that, because a lot of it, there is sort of this childlike nature to Holly, and also the sort of like discovery she makes about her talents for this are usually something that is reserved for, like a younger character. They get mentored by somebody, and it's always just struck me a little bit weird that it's all happening with this older woman who doesn't have any experience or at least in the beginning interest in this sort of thing. And so I think that's always been a roadblock for me with the character, and especially because I've just never enjoyed her quirks and eccentricities. I've never found them particularly charming. They feel a bit contrived and a bit put on, like this concept of her saying poopy all the time, or being like a weird movie buff. Like, these are just things that I don't fully buy about the character on the page, and so I think that what I liked about If It Bleeds was it started to fill in some gaps in terms of the humanity of the character, because I feel like that's been lacking. There's been a lot of quirks and a lot of, I'm thinking about The Outsider, like a lot of investigative intuitiveness that I do think is interesting, and I do enjoy the scenes where she sort of is chasing clues. I think her curiosity is something that I like in the books, but I think for me, I struggled at first with the scenes with her uncle and it is her uncle, right, who's going into the home, with her uncle and her and with her mother. I struggled with those scenes early on because I was just like, I don't really care, I just get me to the blood and guts, and but then I found by the end that was where I was most invested, and I actually started to feel a lot of interest in the character's emotional arc, and I started to understand her struggles a little bit more. And I'll talk about this more later. I don't want to dig into it now because it's kind of a thing, but the relationship with her mother to me is something that feels fresh within the King canon. I know he has a lot of troublesome parents, but I think the particular dynamic between Holly and her mother is something that feels, and it might be because it's something that I've experienced in my personal life is similar to, I think, what Holly's going through here. And so it really landed with me in an emotional sense. And so I found myself really identifying with Holly on a level that I hadn't in the previous books, or even really in the series. I think in the HBO series, we're given sort of the emotional connection through her relationship with the cop the former cop that she has a relationship with, which I think is successful despite itself. It's not a storyline I thought I would have liked on paper, but it was really acted well and beautifully written. And so I think I get some of that here. So I think overall, like in terms of the mystery, and I'm sure you guys will probably talk about the mystery a little bit more, I've been kind of focusing on the emotional aspect. I think for me, the mystery itself was fine and serviceable. I think it waded into a lot of issues that I have with King in general, specifically wisecracking ghosts / demons / monsters. I don't. I like my monsters to speak less than they do in a lot of King stories, and this character here is a bit too mouthy, I think, for me. But I think in terms of the emotional wallop that I felt as the story went on was something I wasn't expecting, and something maybe I was craving, and maybe I'm ballooning it compared to you guys. I think it's just something that I think I wanted from Holly that I feel like I was able to get in If It Bleeds. And in that sense, since King is clearly not going to let this character go and he wants to write more stories with her, I'm glad he's at least moving in that direction where she's becoming more fleshed out and less, I guess archetypal, or, like she's always felt like a character that King created and just was like sort of flipping all these levers for things that he wanted to be in a character that is his own, because he these days he really loves all these writers who do like, a John Lawrence book, right?
Exactly.
It's like they have these continuing characters that show up in these procedural mysteries, and those are great. I like those too. And I think that he really wants that character, and I think he's been sort of fitting Holly into that mold unsuccessfully, I think, for the most part, but I think now I'm starting to get on board with it. So that's my long-winded way of saying I liked If It Bleeds, the story overall. It wasn't my favorite in the collection, but it was, to me, a step forward for the character. Like, I also, I would say I probably like The Outsider a lot more, too, but The Outsider is, a different beast. This is more of a,
So I have a question for you. So how much of your perception of the story was altered by HBO's The Outsider?
Honestly, not too much, because I just reread the Outsider book while I was watching the HBO series, so it was really fresh in my head. And King writes the character in a way that really doesn't dovetail that well with the HBO version. And of course, like, when I think about the way that King has written Holly on the page, I do not think of Cynthia Erivo and her performance, which I love. But to me, they are incompatible. And so I see them as two separate characters. So, and I think also because I have read Mr. Mercedes and that whole trilogy plus The Outsider, I do have a better sense of who King thinks Holly is. So, so yeah, the HBO version was not heavy in my head, but I can see how for you, because you've not read those books, that and I would love to hear you, Mike, talk more about that later, about sort of the Holly on the page here versus the Holly in the series.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's definitely hold that for sure. And especially also, I want to talk about the idea of King wanting to have this character be a vessel into true crime, because I think that's a huge discussion that we needed to have, and something that we've kind of just, kicked around over the last couple of years, because we've certainly discussed King's relationship to true crime and how he's kind of capitalized on the genre itself. But I think at this point, it does feel as if he's kind of found his groove within it. And, let's save it for that. Caffrey, what are your initial thoughts on this? And, you recently just reread the majority of the Holly Gibney tales. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's funny. I like what y'all were saying about picturing Cynthia Erivo in this, because I haven't watched the HBO series, but I have read all the Mercedes trilogy, and I read The Outsider, and I've read this. And I started picturing her in the part, but I totally agree with what Randall was saying. Even having not seen the HBO series, anytime she said poopy or did something quirky, it just did not compute. It was like there was static in my mind. I'm like, oh wait, this man, I feel like I have so much to say. All right, I will say this. I've ragged on Holly Gibney, and not just Holly Gibney. I don't think mystery novels are King's strong suit. No. I just don't. I think there's a reason they all veer into the supernatural, because that's what he's better at. And I don't think he does it in a way that is cool and subverts either genre. For me, it's like, he's not great at writing mysteries, so he makes it a monster story halfway through. He did that with the Mercedes trilogy also. Mm-hmm. And I love King. He's my favorite writer, so I can get through it all, but so that's been just a kind of issue for me with all these books, all this Gibney series in general. However, I want to recognize that that's where his head is at, and that's the type of stuff he likes writing right now, and that's aesthetically, he is dabbling in a certain genre. So I do feel like it's also, as someone reviewing the book, I do think it's good. I think I should meet the book on its own terms, right? It's not much of a review just to say, well, Holly sucks and the Hodges trilogy sucks. I don't think they suck, but they're not my favorite thing, so therefore I'm not into this. So that's I guess that's my big caveat, because I want to kind of check myself when I'm coming down too hard on it, when it just might not be my bag. So anyway, if it bleeds specifically, I think I struggled a bit with this one, aside from all that stuff, because it's such an extension of The Outsider, right? Yeah. I almost wondered if it would have made sense to me if they just somehow brought back The Outsider from The Outsider, not made a new Outsider, which honestly didn't feel that different from the last Outsider to me.
I know.
And it's kind of funny. One of my classmates actually has this play about the kukui, the thing that The Outsider actually is. And I also don't feel like King has done his homework on that mythology. It doesn't feel that specific to me. It's just kind of it's this thing in Mexico, and it can kind of take the form of other things, and bada bing, bada boom. And so I feel like, to me, I just don't love The Outsider as a villain. I don't hate it. I just think it's vague. It's just kind of all right, it's the shape-shifting thing. And
my problem with it is, and I wonder if you share this, because I think you're the most critical out of the four of us. And I wanted to kind of with you.
I feel like I'm the wimpiest out of that. Wait, do you mean in general or just out of the
No, well, no. In terms of for the Holly Gibney stories. And just not to spoil too much, but I want to say, don't you agree that once King actually reveals The Outsider, he has no fucking clue what he wants to do with it?
He has, exactly. It's he well, and for me, when I mean, yeah, and y'all have reviewed The Outsider on the show. Listeners, if you hadn't read The Outsider or watched it, I actually haven't watched it, so I don't know if this happens in the show. Skip past the next 10 seconds. We've all read The Outsider here, right? We've all seen
Yeah.
it.
I've read.
So,
I mean, I know everything that happens in the book just because I was following along. My girlfriend read it while the show was on, and she literally like gave me the whole detail of what happens when the show and the book ultimately really do kind of splinter off,
divert from each other. Yeah, I'm actually curious about that when I do decide to watch the show. And so when I was reading the book and the guy who's arrested, the coach, when he gets like shot halfway through, you're like, holy shit, this is awesome. Where's King gonna take this? Like I was like genuinely like, man, I thought this was gonna be almost like a John Grisham thing where they have to prove his innocence, and and then when it started getting supernatural, I was like, all right, well, okay, let's see. And then when The Outsider became what it was, and that was the reveal, I totally agree. Both with this and If It Bleeds, I'm like, this is just kind of crappy action scenes now. The action scenes aren't even that good to me. So that was a struggle for me, and the book this story felt a tad pointless. Mike, I want to hear what you have to say later about the one for the road thing, because I think that's interesting. But,
totally, yeah.
But then I will say this, in the last bit of the book, the kind of coda where Holly is sort of getting back to her life, and we see Jerome's family and all that, when it's just kind of focusing on them as characters, that was the most I liked Holly or Jerome up to that point. That was when they felt the most realistic as people, and they seemed to be kind of dealing with loss and this lonely existence in a way. And I actually really, really quite enjoyed that, even though, I mean, it was funny because I thought page 256 was like the second to last page. It's when she's driving home listening to the radio, and I'm always a sucker for lonely Christmas scenes too. That's just something I like. And she's listening to Burl Ives on the radio, and I'm like, oh, this is a sweet scene. And I actually thought this was literally the second to last page, and I couldn't believe he did this. And then there's like 10 more pages, so I'm like, okay, that's not as bad. But when it goes, you can't have everything, she thinks. Into every life a little poop must fall. And I think that's sort of my epitome of my issue with him and Holly, is that, like, man, you had this kind of beautiful scene, and I like poopy jokes too, just like Randall. But you had this kind of like beautiful scene, and like the most I've ever really been drawn to her as a character, and then you just throw that shit in there. And I almost, for me, I'm like, I don't think King needs to do all this work to make her eccentric. I don't think that's like what makes her interesting. And it's like just when I'm starting to like her, he always doubles down on that. So I by no means hated this story. After I decided to be on its own terms, I didn't hate it necessarily, but it did just feel a little bit redundant to me. And I guess I just need to accept that like Holly is a character that King, like you guys said, I think she's going to be with us for a long time. At the end, and the authors at the end, he even says, "I love Holly." It's simple as that. She's supposed to, and as someone who, and we're all writers on this podcast, as someone who writes, I totally understand when you unlock something that feels like this tidal wave of creativity, right? Like you tap into something, you're like, oh my God, I have all these ideas. It's almost like the character becomes this kind of muse. I totally understand that. And I guess I just have to accept, just because she's King's hero does not mean she needs to be my hero. We have different because I just don't see it. I'm like, man, I do not see what is so appealing about her to you. I don't see how she's such this like amazing character. Which is kind of a bummer, because when we were talking about the characters King has revisited, the Roland Deschains, the Fowler Callahans, Alan Pangborn, they do tend to be men, right? And so I do like that he has a strong female character that he wants to keep coming back to. But I guess for me, I just don't think it's his most interesting character that I've come across. But he thinks that, and it's his stories. And hey, I'm just the schmo on the podcast. He's the millionaire.
Well,
so
I guess I wonder how much of that appreciation for the character has to deal with the actual character itself, or is it more that it's this sort of quote unquote skeleton key for him to be able to write true crime stories? Because I mean, look at his fucking show, like the shows that he binges and the shows that he watches and the books that he's reading. Like, he's obsessed with true crime right now.
Oh, and he loves like the hard boiled stuff. And I, to be honest, I just don't. I mean, it's like I said earlier, I just don't think it's his strong suit. And maybe people disagree, but like I don't love the Colorado Kid. I just don't think he's good at doing. There's so many hard mechanics that go into crafting a compelling mystery, And I just don't think he knows how to do that. Like, honestly, the biggest mystery we get is like, oh, the guy's mole moved. I wonder. Oh,
I know.
Oh, it's the same. It's the
And
same
that's why it
monster
always
as last
veers
time.
into horror at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's good
Yeah.
at that, and it's like, oh, his mole moved. Oh, what is he? Oh, he's the same monster as last time.
Well,
I
mean, it goes
yeah.
into the sort of thing that I'm always bring up. It's the innuendo, the king innuendo, where you think that like if he's going to infer it, it's going to be real. And like that's why like when they do the whole rigmarole of Holly being like, oh well, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. It was literally like it's like when you watch like a TV show and they do the Sam and Diane thing, and you just fucking know it's going to be Sam and Diane as a couple. Like you're just like, why are you like yanking my chain about this? Like, and they did that. Like, it's one thing to do that in a book where you can kind of go in interesting curves and twists and turns, but like when you do that in like a novella, it's almost like you're only doing this to make it seem that more plausible.
Totally. Well, and also too, it's like, and I think part of what has to do with that is when it comes to, and it's not like King hasn't done his homework. I mean, he's read those true crime guys, and he, went like the Raymond Chandler and whoever else. But yeah, you have to look at how those mysteries always have such a Byzantine quality to them. There's so much in that. Even a movie like Brick, which is like a movie that goes down easy, right?
Oh, Ryan Johnson, who can do no wrong.
Like even with that, like I feel like or Knives Out, hell, it's more of a whodunit than like a hard-boiled mystery. But like Ryan Johnson, in my opinion, I'm like, okay, he layers in so many details, and all these Hodges books and Holly, they figure out the mystery halfway through, and then all you're left with is like a lame monster chase, pretty much. But,
it just builds to a confrontation.
What about
and
you?
it feels so plotting.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Jen. What do you think? Because I think you're the only one on the podcast.
Yeah, I think
I've not heard your thoughts on
if there's anyone that's going to be on here that's going to be that's going to really find some clarity for Holly, it's Jen. So
yeah, I mean okay, now I will say I have not always liked Holly. I don't. Because when I look at the Mercedes or the Hodges trilogy and I look at The Outsider and this, like, I don't care about any of the true crime stuff. It's not really a genre I enjoy. And so for me, when I'm reading those books, it's more about the characters. And like the Hodges trilogy is about Bill Hodges, and I don't like Bill Hodges. And The Outsider is about, I've got some feelings about why that we can maybe talk about later. But
Sure.
Like when I think about The Outsider, that's about Ralph, and I like Ralph more than I like Bill Hodges, but like he bugs me kind of about like when we were talking about the show, like just get on board already, Ralph. Like, and so this is the first book where it's just been Holly, and she's always existed adjacent to these characters. These male characters that are like father figures, and like she's finally like breaking out of that. And I think like King is figuring out how to write about her and kind of figuring out who she is as a character. And so like I read the Hodges trilogy when they first came out in hardback. And then as I was doing my chronological reread, I was like, okay, I'm just going to listen to the audiobooks of this because I know they keep going and I'm not going to like fall asleep and forget to read. And Will Patton, I think, is the one who reads those, and he says her voice.
And he comes back for this one too.
Does he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, he reads her voice in this really clipped way, like commands the woman who once scuttled through a light, and it's just so hard to listen to. And I think that's like leaning into the old King, because like when this character first got introduced, she was so like very tense and anxious and very repressed. And I think you can see her grow a lot. And I did not like her until like about halfway through The Outsider, and I was like, oh, okay, I see who this person is. And when I think about why I didn't like her, I think there's like, if I look at my own life, and because I've got a parent that's very similar to Holly's mother. And it's one of those feelings like when I was reading Gerald's Game, I was like, oh, fuck, King is writing like the thoughts that are in my head. And I've got some of the quotes that made me cry. Because I think when I think back to the Hodges trilogy, the Holly that is there is is so much like the part of myself when I was younger and I was just so afraid of everything, and I didn't like that version of myself. And so I was like reading about her, and I was like, just stop being so afraid of everything and stop, you know? And so I think as you can see her progression through this, she's like becoming the character that she is supposed to be and like finding her courage. And I didn't really see it as much. I think the HBO show kind of leans into she's got like kind of savant qualities, and I don't necessarily see that as much in the books. I see it more as like she's always had this, and now she's finally being taken seriously by other people, and she's taking herself seriously. And so now she can take these things and use them in a way that actually like does something in a world outside of her little house and her family that's controlled by her mother. And so I like when I think about this book or this novella, I don't care about the outsider. That was the least interesting part of it for me. Although I do have some interesting thoughts about, well, I think they're interesting, thoughts about how they connect to, like how it connects to some of his earlier stuff. But like it's Holly's story that I love, and it's all her story. Like the synopsis that Mike read is about Ralph Anderson, and that's like the most we get, you know?
Yeah.
I was actually surprised how much this he was in that synopsis. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, because that's what it was sold as, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Holly, and I like how she kept like talking to him, only not to him. It was almost like a verbal diary, you know?
I like that.
And that
was
kind
cool.
of like the one thing that has stuck with me from the show was this moment where she says, sometimes I just want to hear the voice of someone who's on my side. And that just has stuck with me, and it touched me. And so I like that carries over, and that now that she has had enough contact with people that are on her side and that care about her, now she has the strength to like be on her own side, you know?
Yeah, I like what you said, Jen, about her, because even me not, and it sounds like I probably like the story the least I've ever in here. I did, like I said, the end is when I did start to see glimmers of a character I did like, and I like what you said about he's kind of figuring out how to write her, and it would be interesting to see what the next Holly story is like, and the next one after that. You know, I'm trying to think if there's another character from fiction where they didn't really figure them out until, I mean, I guess you could say the Friday the 13th movies with Jason, right? Like by the third, one, it's like, oh, Jason, like now we're in total Jason. But yeah, and like I said, I felt that way about Jerome too, and that's I think because he's also scaling back on his racial caricature voice, which is which he mentions in here, but I don't think he actually ever does it. Thank God, because that's like awful. I think maybe maybe it's like in the Hodges trilogy the sense of humor is just not our thing or something.
I think my problem is that it's too cutesy. It reminds me of the humor in the Marvel universe where it's like, and actually this whole, I think I texted Randall about this, but like whenever you get back to like Finders Keepers headquarters, it literally reminds me of like when you get a real good character from the MCU, which is pretty fucking rare since they all suck. But when you get a good character...
Way to just get us like 10 one-star reviews, Mike.
I know. Look, you want to get my id. I like Iron Man 3 and what's another one that I think is good.
You like Spider-Man.
I like Spider-Man Homecoming. Those two are great. But everything else, whatever. Take it or leave it.
I'm a big Marvel stan. I love those movies.
But either way, what I can't stand about the Avengers movies is that when you take like a really serious character, like Tony Stark on his own is great because he's nuanced. He's not a fucking punch bag. He doesn't just deliver one-liners and whatnot. Although I think in Endgame he's actually pretty great. But what I think is annoying about the Avengers is that you have to have all these these sort of sensibilities and these like personalities all like commingled together. And whatever severity that you've seen them in their own separate chapters kind of gets washed away for this like, oh, well, look at the gang's back together and we're here at Avengers headquarters and everything's all right. And, and it kind of like strips their personalities in favor of like punchy sentimentality. And that's kind of what I get every time we get to like Finders Keepers. Like I love when Holly's on her own and doing her own things because like it reminds me of like for me, it was actually impossible for me to not see Cynthia Erivo in this. Like I just saw Cynthia Erivo. Even I just looked beyond the stupid Kingisms that have like the poopy and stuff like that. I don't even really recall it too much because I think I glossed over a lot of it.
Me too.
The E on the end of it. It reminds me of that scene in The Wire where this like veteran cop is like looking for a new job.
Yeah.
But the guys here interviewing him are like so soft and old, and the guys and one of them goes like, "Excuse me, I have to tinkle," and the guy's like, "Tinkle?" Like he gets turned off by it.
But that's honestly how I feel with like a lot of like the dynamics and language with like the characters that are tied more to Mr. Mercedes. Like when it's more of like the outsider and Holly in her own head and like with her family and kind of talking to Ralph in her own sort of like, almost like Ralph was like her dark passenger in a way, not to reference Dexter too much, but like I love those sequences just because it felt so much more real. Like it was treating the source material real. And like the minute it gets to Finders Keepers, which I was actually kind of pissed off that like the story ends there, because I knew that like A, King was never going to kill any of his characters. B, like it just kind of limits the sort of possibilities that could happen, and C, kind of seems a little dubious and unrealistic. Like if this thing is like an all-knowing like creature and has lived on for hundreds and hundreds of years, like you'd think it'd be smarter and wiser to like than what King presents it as in this like incredibly limited and like very micro scenario that he paints. And he does the same thing with The Outsider. Like you go in a cave, like honestly, he should be like have the upper hand in this situation, and yet you really don't get the sense that like they literally beat him down with a fucking bag of like things and stuff like that. Like,
it's like quarters.
The slapjack or like the sock.
The happy slapper.
Yeah. So for me, it's like all the characters. Like I actually like Holly when she's on her own, and I'm kind of hoping that this story like launches that and like allows her to be on her own so that we can get a little bit more stakes. Because when she's at Finders Keepers, I never get a sense that she's in any trouble or any.
But the thing is, like, part of it is the community that. But here's the thing: I don't really like it. I would prefer Holly on her own, but a lot of what the character's arc is building community, because she's never had that. And so like Jerome, his sister, the guy at Finders Keepers, like, and in just the way that she's trying to mend this relationship with her mother and everything, like she's trying to like build up relationships that Hodges basically taught her how to have. And that's like what King's trying to do. Unfortunately, I'm with you in that I don't really care about Jerome or his sister or any of these other characters, and it's just I don't know. And then Jerome's, I don't know, it's like I always struggle, like I like characters who feel like real people, and Jerome is this like Ivy League book author, like when he's like 22 years old or something. And I'm just like fuck off, like I don't come on.
It's that thing. It's like the have you all read Black House, the sequel to Talisman? It's the thing. King does this sometimes, and it's his heart and his politics are in the right place. He wants to go against the stereotypes so hard, right? That he doubles down the way he gives them conflicting traits that just are not obviously not that a young black man cannot be a successful novelist, but he's just piling on like thing after thing after thing, and just and then in addition to that, it's like, oh, he's going to subvert the racial stereotype by actually mimicking like a stupid black person. And it's like, and you're just like, this all feels kind of, and in Black House, he has those bikers who like quote philosophy all the time. And you're just like, come on, dude. Once again, not that a biker cannot read philosophy, but you can paint the biker as a nuanced, intelligent person without him like talking about Kierkegaard. It feels like really, it just feels kind of silly. I think to me at the end of the day. And like I said, not that, for me, he scaled back on the Jerome stuff this time, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, all right, King, we get it. Like, you try not to be stereotypical, but you still need to make him feel realistic, I guess, Anyway.
No, I mean, that's kind of how I felt. It's like they're so it's kind of weird to describe it. I call them so like cushion characters, where like they're too like soft and cuddly for them to die. Like never once did I think like, oh, Jerome got hit in the head, he's dead. Like no, he's gonna probably come back in the end. Oh wow, lo and behold, he does. Like and like it just seems so like. I don't know, like they all seem so perfunctory, like they're there like at a happenstance, and like they're like chess items that like he's never gonna lose. And
it's like Gale and Sydney reminded from Scream,
Yeah, and that's why like there's all this talk about like the new Scream movie. I'm like, oh great, can't wait so I can watch another movie where they're gonna survive and like make some quips about like the next generation. Like I don't like. Unless you,
no, I'll still watch it, but yeah,
I mean, I'll be there opening night.
I say both of you are going to be there.
Oh, I'll be there opening night, but the problem is that like you got to up the stakes, and like, and it kind of goes into what we were saying last week, where it's like I almost feel like King is pulling his punches a little bit. Like somebody should have died here. Like, why didn't anybody
somebody
die?
we care about in our little quartet? Yeah. I felt that way about The Outsider. I was shocked that the body count was as low. And with Dr. Sleep, too, you know, and I think the adaptations kind of, I don't want to say corrected that, but just like kind of added the edge back in, because I do see King doing that more over the years, is like making his characters, his like real characters kind of off limits from like the harm, you know?
Yeah.
Do you guys think that, because we're talking about him being so into writing these mysteries, do you picture him walking around their main mansion with his like fedora pulled low, and he's like, there he was getting eggs for breakfast, and then Tabby's like, Steven, enough, like just stop it with the mystery shit already, and he's like, there she was, a dame who was in need. She's like, Steven, stop it. Like,
Steven, you quit smoking. Why do you have a cigar in your mouth?
Just being so into the
No, I
mystery,
actually see him going the full fucking full Nelson. Like he rents out like a small little office in Bangor, Maine that's like has like stairs and like a little light bulb outside, and like, you know, he hires a secretary to like be at the front of the desk, and he's just like, well, done writing for the day. See you tomorrow, Dolores. And then like, you know, puts on his hat and a cap.
Animals.
Yeah, and like
he's like, I just picture it because the thing that sticks out to me about Hodges is his like stupid hat that he's always got like like down on his luck kind of thing. And so I just picture him like a low brim fedora, like pulling over his head, and like, Steven, why they're where are you going, Steven? You live here. And he's like, right.
I'm going out for a walk, babe. I'll see you later. Gotta catch a flight, if you know what I mean.
So
maybe Tabby won't let him ride the motorcycle anymore, so he's got to have something.
How do we feel about King kind of folding all of these great tragedies, like these mass shootings and
like Parkland
bombings?
That is a question.
How do we feel about him folding all of this into this, like attributing it in many ways, or I guess not attributing it, like this is a character, this is more of a monster that appears at those things, but there is the question of whether or not the energy, like with the original Outsider, the energy of the creature sort of ripples throughout and creates tragedy upon tragedy. I guess like
it's a bold move. It's a bold
move, and it reminds me in a way of when we were watching Needful Things. And it's in the book too, but we were laughing especially in the movie though, because it was basically like Leland is the reason Hitler was a thing.
Yeah, and that's really his only like claim to fame in the movie, because we don't really get to see his nefarious deeds, you know, in action.
Well, and we don't get to see him as a little dwarf. Right?
No, we don't. Unfortunately, no.
Yeah. His true form.
His true form.
But so I guess like for me, it always gives me sort of a cheap thrill, I guess I'd say, because when I think about things that scare me, right, it's like it's hard for me to find things that. Like, when I read, like, a horror novel, I don't get scared when I usually don't get scared when somebody gets killed or when a ghost pops out of the closet or whatever, but when you suddenly rope in the Pulse nightclub shooting, right? And
it's a little touchy.
Well, it's just like, the thing is though, it's effective in its way because I think about where I was. I literally remember being on Twitter the night that happened and watching the revelations roll in, you know, and it was horrible. Like it's so gutting and horrible, and you're just hearing about the grisly details of this shooting, and even by that point a lot of the details aren't confirmed, and you're just getting this, or sometimes you're seeing video of things, and it reminds me of when he mentions these things, it does remind me of that horrible, like, sunken gut feeling that I get when these things happen and I start to see them roll in on online. And so it's sort of this cheap way, I guess, of making his horror that he's creating resonate that much more. And he's, again, this isn't new. Like, he's tied Randall Flagg to, I think, like, some
everything
tragedies, obviously, and
like Down to Freeze and all that stuff. And
and
even
Gaunt
in
too.
I don't think he's I can't remember him tying Pennywise to any real life tragedies, but obviously Pennywise is responsible for most of the most heinous acts of violence in that town. Like, he's always flirted with the idea of like an old historical villain kind of extending their reach beyond just the immediate events of the book.
Well, I mean, I guess
so-
it's the question. It's like, do we consider this to borrow from a term that you'd see on Twitter, like, opportunistic? Do we think this is problematic?
I mean, I don't know. You go ahead, Jen.
Well, because I kind of have a theory about this, and just go with me here for a minute.
Oh, go for it.
Because I do think there's like the kind of the voyeurism, and there's like a little bit of a shorthand to like, here's tragedy shorthand, where you don't have to build that out. But I think what he's doing here is I think he's revisiting rage, because he wrote about that school shooting, and he's pulled that. And so I was just listening recently to his essay Guns about his decision to pull that from publication, which Rage is one of his very, very early novels or novellas that he actually wrote under the name Richard Bachman, which I think is significant to the story too. So I think he is kind of making peace with what he wrote then. And I think that we have a character in this story who has a twinner, because one thing that's interesting about this outsider is that there is a twinner aspect, and there are like other people. So I think and Holly actually calls him George, which is a nod to George Stark, which was the kind of evil side of the writer that we see in the Dark Half. And so which George Stark is an allegory for Richard Bachman, I think, in a lot of ways. And Richard Bachman was what he wrote Rage under. And so the problem with Rage, sorry, this is my
No, this is
I
great.
got a bunch of red thread connected. So the problem that I think I wasn't part of the show back then, but like I agreed with what you guys all said about Rage, is that he almost turns Charlie Decker, who's the school shooter in Rage, into like an anti-hero. And he just has so much sympathy for that character. And I think that I think I can kind of chalk that up to him just being really young. And this was like in the 60s, and the world is a lot different now. So I have grace for that. I also understand why he pulled it from publication. But like, I think this is him, like the bomber in this book is not human. It is a monster. And so I think as weak a monster as I kind of think he is, I think that by framing him as an inhuman monster, he's almost trying to make up for how much he sympathized with Charlie. And so when he is killing George in the story, it's like, I don't want to sound too schmaltzy, but it's like he's killing the part of himself that wrote that, you know?
That's interesting. I know it's funny because I really like that theory. And it coming from this kind of politically redemptive place, and it's weird. I didn't really flag it too much in this story. But now that I'm thinking about it, I guess there's a lot of different ways to read it, right? It's like there's what Jen was saying, and in a weird way, you could argue that by making this actual monster responsible for all these things, King is kind of in his own way paying homage to victims and the survivors of it, and trying to like honor them in some sort of strange way. But also on the other hand, you could be like, well, does making it a supernatural monster take away from the real life evils that we experience and the real life prejudices, right? Like if it's it wasn't a homophobic guy with a gun, it was this like bloodthirsty beast or whatever it is. It's and I don't really, I guess I don't fall too hard on one side or the other. But I do think there are like different ways to read it. I really like what you're saying though about him thinking more sensitively about that stuff nowadays than he did with Rage, which Rage seems to be like universal. Like I don't think any of us on this podcast are like, oh yeah, like artists are responsible for the acts inspired by their art, but Rage is like this one exception where everyone, including the creator, I think is like, yeah, we don't really need this.
Well, there's also a history too of shooters sort of being inspired by those kind of works of art, like the guy who killed John Lennon carrying around the Catcher in the Rye, and it's like, I mean,
some of the shooters were actually found with those copies.
Oh yeah, you're right. We talked about that in our episode. Speaking of, we have an episode on Rage. It exists.
It's good.
I remember recording it in a very small apartment many years ago. So
I remember being sick, coming on with the sickness from it. And
you weren't getting down with the sickness?
I was getting down with the sickness. I actually think that's an interesting take for sure, because I mean, you looking at him kind of, I like this idea, if we're to look at some of his more works, is like redeeming, or not redeeming, or like looking at past quote unquote sins, so to speak. Like, I mean, because it makes sense. I mean, like when you're looking at his age and where he's at, you are going to feel nostalgic, and I almost feel like there is some sort of like amends that's going on here. I guess the thing that's kind of hard about this debate for me is that you could really make an argument for either or. You can make an argument that by stripping the name of the killers and by making them this beast, you're taking away the thing that they wanted most, right? Which is recognition, which is that sort of that attention, I guess. Recognition, yeah. But then B, you can make the argument that, well, you're also empowering them more because they're this sort of celestial monster, so to speak. So I guess that it kind of is this sort of like, depending on where you look and what hill you kind of stand on, you can kind of see it as being problematic or intriguing. I guess intriguing is the best way to put it. I don't know if I'd say it's great, but
well, and it's interesting because I think he kind of addresses that a little bit here. And like, so if I think way back to Salem's Lot with Father Callahan, and he's talking about capital E evil and little e evil. And like the capital E is like the demons, and I think of like The Exorcist, like Pazuzu, and like and like Barlow, and then like the small evil, which is just like a man who beats his wife, and just as he refers to it in this book, like the moron stuff. And he's talked about, I think he's kind of explored that throughout his career. Like what is like, and here Jerome is talking about outside evil and inside evil. And then what Jerome ultimately ends up saying is he doesn't think there's any difference, which I think is the first time I really have seen King kind of put those two together, So when I think of like him referencing school shooters, I think maybe he's saying like there really isn't a difference between this like all powerful man who like takes all these lives in his hands and crushes them, and just this like sad kid who just did a bunch of terrible shit, And I think I kind of like that. It almost feels like that theory for him is kind of coming together here.
If it bleeds, we can kill it. Probably my favorite line from Predator. Classic Arnold. Well, now it might be my favorite Stephen King book. What's that you say? Yes, Stephen King has a new book, or rather a novellas collection. It's called, you guessed it, If It Bleeds, and features 4 different stories. One's about a rat, another one's about a man who contains multitudes, there's a cell phone with an afterlife, and even Holly Gibney joins in on the phone. And if you're like us, you'll probably just imagine Cynthia Erivo in the role the entire time. That's a reference to HBO's The Outsider. I didn't kill that kid, Ralph, but you will read this book. After all, we have nothing but long days and pleasant nights ahead of us. Ooh, can't wait. So what are you waiting for, constant listeners? Grab a copy of If It Bleeds, the latest from Cy King. 4 novellas, creepy tales, Holly Gibney. You can't lose. Get it now, wherever books are sold. Hasta la vista, baby.
To pivot slightly, how do we feel about this creature being a cousin to the outsider?
That's my yeah. So
this was something that kind of annoyed me, like that idea of it being a first or second cousin. It's the thing is, I feel like when King came up with the outsider concept, he had 2 different ideas for what it could be, And the outsider, he went one way, and then he thought, oh, that could be also neat if it's this, if it like feeds off grief by attending mass tragedies, and so I can explore this other version of it, and it's a first and like just when you put the phrase like first or second cousin in there, I like groan so loud. I'm just kind of like,
hey,
and this is. Wait, you go, Dan.
I was just going to say, first, second cousins, I would hate to be at that family reunion. I'm sorry.
Fellow loser here, Dan Flieger, one of his favorite things in any source material is when you have like nuance with regards to like villains or monsters or any sort of lore that you can kind of dig deep on. Like he's like a huge fan of Game of Thrones, and one of the things he loves is like when you can kind of find like the disparities between the houses, and like, oh, this dragon is at this stage, so this dragon can do this, and that aids to the world building, right? It's not just the setting, it's also the character. And like what I feel is kind of frustrating what you're saying, Randall, is that like there isn't a lot of thought to the sort of evolution of quote unquote
No.
the outsider is. It's
No.
like, think about the setting. How many times have you been into like one of these sort of like pedestrian style office buildings? The lobby area is not very large. Like there's not a lot of room here. So like the actual setting for this quote unquote final battle is so uneventful. And like
Yeah.
it's even like a lesser version of the thing that we saw in the cave. And even in the cave it felt kind of like,
Yeah.
wait, a bag of like not
The
quarters,
happy
but
slap-
like
happy
But-
slap- ball,
Happy
ball,
ball
slapper,
bearings
yeah.
are gonna
Happy slapper,
fucking
yeah.
take this thing down. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like the fucking kids in Stranger Things have it harder than these people.
Yeah, I kept picturing Frasier's hallway with the elevator.
Yeah, exactly that. Yes, exactly.
Wait,
But
And-
but
and-
this speaks to what Dan was saying earlier about King maybe not doing his research on this myth. And the thing is, like, what he posits in The Outsider is not that this is the Mexican legend, right? This isn't like El Cuco. That's just like the
No.
phrase they use for it.
Yeah,
like what
yeah.
King
Yeah.
posits is that it is the thing that has spawned the various legends about grief eaters across the world. And that's interesting, but at the same time, it's playing fast and loose with mythology, right? It's
Exactly,
kind of
yeah.
like this is an idea I like, but by saying that no one culture is correct in how they, are envisioning this creature, then I can make it whatever I want it to be. And then, so that's fine in The Outsider, right? That I can accept that. But here he's basically just being like, well, because I said that, I can make this other version
Yeah.
Right.
of the
Well, and I
monster
know-
that,
Also, too, I think that I've said this so many times in the podcast at this point. King already has so many villains that feed off of fear, feed off of grief, or siphon off energy from people. Just like this whole idea of leeching, essentially Dementors or whatever. And so, for me, it just feels like a lazy villain choice in general. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the whole. I feel like the term energy vampire could apply to so many of King's villains at this point. And
Oh,
it's
I
just
know.
It's just not that interesting to me. And I'm like,
No.
Especially
and-
recently.
yeah, oh God. And I'm like, oh, it's just like a shapeshifter essentially. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
once
then
again,
it begs the question. It's like, well, are these connected to the fucking energy shapeshifters and like Rose the Hat and all the the tribe?
Is
and
it like a
that?
more boring Pennywise?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. Like, and I don't. Hell, I'd almost rather make like a really strong Pennywise connection at this point, rather than like, oh yeah, well, it's kind of this thing, but it's also this thing.
Yeah.
Like just make a decision. I just don't like the super for someone who is so good at being specific with his supernatural elements. I think I'm just like repelled a little bit, but repelled. What am I saying? It's not like he's coming over and shitting on my floor or something. Sorry, I sound like.
What are you like in a cave right now? Like
No, I've been inside
you got your
yeah.
gear out and you're repelling.
Yeah. I've been inside too long. No, I'm not. I feel like I'm like talking about this book way more viciously than I actually feel about it. But and I really like the other three stories. But anyway, I think I just when it comes to King's supernatural villains, he's usually so good at making them specific, and so when he gets into this vague territory. I mean, hell, I think the rat in Rat feels so specific to me in a way that the Outsider does not, and I think that's why I like the story Rat so much.
Yeah.
But anyway,
This one almost feels like the Teen Wolf 2 to The Outsider.
Yes.
Hey, Jason
Yeah.
Bateman also, right?
I know, Jason
Yeah,
Bateman
yeah.
connection.
Cool, okay.
I think like if there's anything to be taken away from this that I do appreciate, it's kind of what Randall was getting at, is that I am won over by Holly. I did enjoy being with Holly.
Yes.
I appreciated the anxieties that she has, and I certainly connected with it in ways that I hadn't with even watching The Outsider. Again, I have no real footing. I feel like I'm Donnie in The Big Lebowski. I'm out of my element here because I haven't read this stuff. But like, I ultimately was certainly won over by the character itself, just because I liked her method of thinking. I liked being able to see. Like, look, I grew up on Thomas Harris books, so even as a young age, I was reading Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and obviously
I grew up on them.
Well, I did because I read both Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs when I was like maybe like 12 or 13, which is a pretty early age to read those books. They're
those
pretty
are
fucking
fucked up.
like dark books.
I was leaned on the teat of Francis Dollar.
Yeah, and obviously he found, he definitely went off less steadier footing with Hannibal and obviously Hannibal Rising, which I think he wrote in like maybe 2 hours. But I love when true crime is pulpy and fun. Like I like it, and like this one, and especially when you have like a really good protagonist at the center, and I feel like he does that with this. But ultimately, like it does feel a little. It kind of has the problem that a lot of indie horror movies have right now, where it's like the third act just can't fucking land, and they have and like at some point, like halfway through the movie, which is usually at the time when the climax is really supposed to kind of heat up, and like, are you supposed to build towards it? They kind of like fumble and they're like, oh God, where do we go? Well, let's just do the most outlandish stuff possible and like just like flood it with action. And that's kind of my problem with if it bleeds, and also The Outsider, is that it ultimately trades in the sort of intuition and nuance for like high action, like, oh, this is what would be at the end of a Law and Order episode or something that he's watching on, and that's kind of takes away the story for me. But
it's funny, Brent. Thomas Harris also is a professed fan of Thomas Harris. Well, it's interesting looking at Hannibal the show, and then also looking at Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon. The audience knows from the beginning who the killers are, like always. Like it's never, and it is Thomas Harris is somehow still makes the quest for the heroes to solve the mystery that the audience has already solved, so we're not waiting on information. He somehow makes that interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's because he has these details like the Death's Head moth and the switching of the faces and all the clues Lecter leaves about, using the word bilirubin, which means bilirubin, which is code for shit. Even though the audience isn't even trying to figure out anything in Silence of the Lambs or Red Dragon or whatever, they already know who the killers are. Harris knows how to pile on those procedural details in a way that makes us still want to follow it. And I don't, and that's why I think these books are missing for me. With these, it's like, I think The Outsider and If It Bleeds, it's both like, and the Hodges trilogy, it's kind of like, okay, pretty good, hard-boiled detective story. Something crazy happens, awesome. Oh wait, now we're in monster territory, and then it just like the pivot just never quite lands right. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's my question, as we can kind of wrap this up, because I mean, we're not going to nose this, right? I mean, we kind of debated that after last week's episode, but I mean, should
we nose the collection as a whole? What do you guys think? I don't know.
I mean, I think maybe we could do that. I mean, maybe we give our rankings of what stories we love the best to worst, each person.
Okay, cool.
And then I have a final question to ask, based on that kind of bridges the two together. Jen, you go first with a ranking.
Ranking. I think I would probably rank. Are we going from worst to best?
Yes.
Okay, so my fourth ranking I think would be Rat. I think my third would be Mr. Harrigan's Phone. My second would be Life of Chuck. And my first would be If It Bleeds. Now, that is not a ranking of the quality of these stories. That is how I connected to them, because I can see flaws in all of those. But just like, and we talked a lot about that in the last one. But just like, this was one of those books that I just read at the perfect time in my life. And I just connected so much with Holly in this. And it just, like, I was crying when I finished this. And it just got me, so yeah.
I'm sorry I ragged on her. I feel bad now.
Oh, no, that's okay. No. And it's valid. Like, Holly just, she and I are one.
I connected to the rat, okay? He's the one
well, hey, rat man over here. Why don't you go give your ranking then?
All right, where Jen, you did worst to let's
say
4-1. Least favorite to favorite. Okay. My least favorite was If It Bleeds. Surprise, surprise. Next would come Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Then would come The Life of Chuck. I think, and it's funny, I feel like The Life of Chuck, me to Life of Chuck is as Jen is to If It Bleeds. Like, Life of Chuck is also, I think, horribly flawed in its own kind of ways, but I think I connected to that one emotionally. And then we got to go with All rat. I love rat. I don't love the rat pun that ends the book, but other than that, I love rat. So, yeah. And I would say if we were going to give ratings, which I know we're not, I would do 3.5 noses for the whole book. It was a solid collection.
Well, we give a soft nose rating. It's like we got the noses, but we're not putting them on the face. All right, so 3.5 from you, Caffrey. Jen, what nose rating did you give?
I think I might give it a 4.
Oh, yeah.
I will say on Goodreads, if anyone follows my Goodreads reviews, I'm not trying to be inconsistent because I gave it 4 on Goodreads, but Goodreads doesn't let you do half stars or half ratings, so I always round up a little bit on Goodreads.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm like ranking things really high too. So there are Stephen King books that I do not like. So.
Yeah.
All right,
it's also like I guess eventually in years and years we'll get to an in-depth review of it. Although this was all pretty in-depth, I guess we'll get to
I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if how we dissect this in 2023. If
that's conservative, yeah.
I know it's probably be 2024 or 2025. Rockin' Randall.
Hey,
what's your ranking? What's your rockin' ranking?
My rockin' ranking, baby. Oh, I got an ambulance coming. It's
it's on the way. Maybe it's heading towards Finders Keepers to take Jerome to the hospital and help him with his head wound.
Okay. I think from least to best, my least favorite story, it's Life of Chuck.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck Chuck.
No, I obviously talked about it.
Fuck.
I do think there's a lot of good in Life of Chuck, but yeah, it's my least favorite. And then I'd probably go Mr. Harrigan's Phone, although I still do like it a lot. And then If It Bleeds, and then Rat is probably my favorite. I am a rat man, as they say. So yeah, and then I guess for a nose rating, I'm with Dan. I think I'd do a 3.5 out of 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. I think that there's a lot to like here, and I think that it's a strong novella collection, and I think that there's a lot of good. And I like that he's experimenting a little bit, you know? The humor in Rat feels different than anything I've really encountered in King lately. And I would also say that Life of Chuck has some really beautiful sort of existential musings that I like in a vacuum, but I just don't love them as a story. And then If It Bleeds, again, I'm not stoked for a new Holly book, but I'm at least on my way towards I feel like we got past the rough first season of a show, and now I'm starting to get onto it a little bit. And then Harrigan's Phone I think is a good meat and potatoes King story. I might have liked it more if he had written it 30 years ago, based on his sensibilities, but I also appreciate sort of where he's at now and sort of the more optimistic vein of his writing these days. It's something I may not like as much as his early stuff, but at the same time I appreciate it, and it feels earnest and it feels genuine. So that's my thoughts on If It Bleeds.
Well, I'm gonna give it my little rankings here. I got If It Bleeds at the worst, but hey, look, I still liked it. I'm gonna go next with Ring Ring Ring, Mr. Harrigan's Phone. I got a rap problem here, but I'm not certainly complaining about it. And then last but not least, obviously I was the stand for Chuck. I loved Life of Chuck. It's something that's going to stick with me for a while, for all the reasons I discussed last week, which ultimately puts this book at a 4-noser for me. I haven't really dug a lot of new Kings so much as this just hooked me in immediately, and this brought me back to like old Salad Days King, and in the same way that like 11/22 and Under the Dome did, where I felt like he was kind of like leaning on some, flexing some muscles that he hadn't flexed in a while.
Would you use the as you used for the Halloween's advertisement, the old Lethal Weapon adage, the magic is back?
Let's just say the magic's back. It really did feel that way with this. It felt as if going through Elevation, back in 2018, I read that like in like a sitting, and it was enjoyable, but it also felt just so like performative and just like hollow, which no pun intended. But with this, it really felt like he kind of found that sort of sentimentality and was able to kind of wheel it into his older sensibilities. I do wish he would have kind of punched a little harder, and in certain places, and I think it could have certainly bled a little bit more. But ultimately, a fun collection. I have two questions. One related to this book. One that's a little loosely outside of it to kind of send us off. But first, do we think that King is at his best in these sort of sections or these segments, novellas? Do you think this format suits him best at where he's at right now currently?
It's a good question because I feel like as of late, hang on, I guess this isn't true. What I was going to say was that I feel like lately he's been really attracted to these kind of sparse novellas that are almost sold as full-length books, like Gwendy's Button Box and Elevation. But then he's got The Outsider and he has The Institute, but The Outsider's from an already existing property in a way, and I haven't read The Institute, so I can't really speak on that. Because even Bizarre Bedrooms is a short story collection, and then Sleeping Beauties, which I haven't read, that's with his son, right? So I think sometimes,
long.
and I don't want to say I worry about this because he's getting old and God knows the man is super prolific, so it's not like he needs to be writing The Stand at his age. So I say all that to say, maybe the novella suits just where he's at workload wise right now. You know what I mean?
I think that's where.
Is he going to write another It? But I've heard I've heard comparisons of The Institute to It, so maybe he does still have that. But also you all said The Institute's not as good as something like It, right? Or is it?
Randall, you got to answer that. Or Randall or Jen can answer that one.
Wait, say that again, Dan.
Well, I was saying, I guess I'm sort of wondering, just at his age and his output is maybe the novella does suit King better because he's just more toward shorter form.
Yeah, I can see that,
but he did do The Institute, which I haven't read.
Yeah, he still did.
Because The Institute's very long, and it definitely has its same with Outsider. Do you feel
The
like
Outsider is long? Yeah, but I think
it's middle long.
I think The Outsider is connected to an already existing work. You know what I mean? I guess I'm saying does King still have it in to do these really hefty first time story kind of books? And if not, I think the novellas does suit him really well right now. And as far as do we prefer him in this form? I guess it's kind of hit and miss for me because I love Full Dark No Stars. I love different seasons.
Yeah.
Do not like 4 Past Midnight so much.
I guess I could kind of relate in the sense that I feel like we're in a world that demands content on a 24/7 basis, and we are. And for me that writes and preside over a media company, my anxiety boils over when I spend too much time on one project. And my anxiety's eased when I can knock out one project after another, which is why I love doing a lot of the short form writing, and I like doing a lot of long form audio because it's a lot easier to do the latter and the former. So I almost wonder if King's the same mentality and has that psychology of I got some time here. I got so much time left. I really want to, I have all these stories. How am I going to parse them out? All right, I'll do novellas. I'll do short story. I can do, I guess novellas really. He hasn't really done short stories since 2015. So,
was that when Bizarre Bad Dreams that long ago? Yeah, I guess it was. Huh? Yeah. I like that collection a lot.
So, maybe it does suit him well. I think, honestly, I enjoy the novella more. I think it works in the same facility as a lot of the comfort TV that we have right now, where I don't have to spend too much time on it. I admittedly, when I sat down to try to read Institute last fall, I certainly had some anxiety with the sense that, God, this is a long book. I'm not immediately hooked into it. And I have so many other books I can read by him. So
yeah.
I put that one down for months at a time.
Yeah.
Really? I'm excited to read it. I know nothing about it.
I really liked
it. Daniel read it in 3 hours.
Yeah.
What was I to last time? I'm like, novellas are fun because you can read them fast, but hey, so are 1,000-page books, I know. Yeah.
All I want from
Ken.
King is and I demand this of him before he leaves us, is I'm just kidding. No, it's my favorite King books will always be the ensemble epics, The
Yeah.
Stand, It, Needful Things, Salem's Lot, Under the Dome, books like that. Those are the ones where that's like where I'm at my sweet spot with King, which is like long, twisty, huge cast of characters, bunch of weirdos, really violent, really emotional. I just like, that's when I'm at my sweet spot with him. I obviously have reconciled the fact that I probably won't get another one of those from him before, and I think you guys are right in that he's probably just more comfortable writing in shorter forms these days. Although, obviously he's never stopping. I mean, I think that's just the number one thing that we all know is true is that he's going to write until the day he dies. And, he's just never going to stop. So I don't know. I mean, there is the chance that he could knock out like another big epic, but I don't know. I'm not holding my breath for it. I think we're going to be getting probably more novellas and more, I think like 300 page. He's probably still going to keep playing around with Holly and keep doing some, he's probably working on like a full length Holly novel right now. So for all we know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he said he's working on something right now in quarantine.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly he is, because obviously why not?
He
He's
never
still
stops.
Yeah, because he's still awake.
When I think about novelists as they get older, I mean, Philip Roth, who wrote very long books for much of his life, and when he got toward the last decade of his life, he was writing these really slim, like 150 page, sometimes shorter books, like Everyman and Nemesis and The Humbling and all these, and those are some of my favorite things he's done, because I feel like his voice has become so distilled at that point, and he's figured out kind of the essence of himself, and I really like. I like seeing him get to that point. And also, too, if King stopped writing tomorrow, we'd all be sad, of course. But, like, that man does not owe us anything. I mean, because he doesn't owe us anything because no one owes us anything. But also, like, he has given us as much – I think we always say it's like as much as we rag on some of his writing sometimes and stuff like Holly. I mean, the breadth of the work he's given the world is just insane for someone his age or any age. Like, it's like – If he announced tomorrow I'm officially retiring, no more books, I just want to chill out the rest of my life. I would be sad if we wouldn't get more books, but I wouldn't begrudge him that. I'd be like, no, dude, you've given us so many different worlds and so much to do and read. So yeah. What about you, Jen? Yeah, the short form versus long form stuff.
So I agree with Randall. Like, my favorite are the long epics, but I think my second favorite might be the short stories.
Same.
Because I feel like that's like one of the things that I love about him, and he's talked about his stories being like artifacts that he's uncovering. And I love that he allows the stories to be what they want to be, and he will cut them off when I feel sometimes he'll cut them off when they're done. And if it's a novella, then that's the length it is. And if it's a short story, then that's it. And I know there are occasionally ones that feel like they go on and on forever, but like I kind of like, I don't know. I think he's just the best when he's got an idea and it's in his fingers and he's getting it out on the page, and like I'll read it at any length, because I also think, like, we were talking about the collections, but like The Mist is a novella, and I love that. And Dolan's Cadillac, I think, from Nightmares and Dreamscapes is a novella, and that's one of my favorites in that collection. And I feel like this is a good length because it's like, it's more than the short story, because the fun thing about the short stories is it's like, it's not hack and slash, but it's like you don't have to think through it so much that you follow the thread till it's not scary anymore. And then the long epics, sometimes, like, I love the meeting notes, but you don't have that stage in the stand where it's just stalling out. So this is just like, it's just like a very digestible, where he can make a point and really explore it, but we don't get tired of the characters,
Yeah.
So I guess all that to say, yes, I do like the novellas.
It is interesting that so I'm looking back on all his works. If Under the Dome was his 2010s version of an ensemble, what would we consider his 2000s then? Did he even have one? I don't think he did, because of the accident. I mean, in the 90s is obviously Needful Things, 80s is pretty much it, 70s is The Stand. I guess
what about 1122?
I mean, 1122 is
that an ensemble?
I wouldn't really, because it really does focus mostly on Jake. Like, you never really do get any chapters outside of Jake.
So you said Under the Dome. When did Under the Dome come out?
2010.
So that's for the 2010s. That's his. For the 2000s.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at
There's
the old
nothing
bookshelf.
really.
Oh yeah.
So I wonder if this is like his leap year or his leap decade.
That's interesting. Because he was writing. I mean, like, was Heart. Yeah, no, because Dreamcatcher was his post like accident book, right?
Yeah.
The other stuff is all pretty insular. Like Black House is like pretty small cast and focused on. I mean, you got those bikers, the philosophy bikers.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could make the argument that finishing the Dark Tower is his way of doing the odds.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I do wonder if like
point.
maybe he does make one more for the 2020s and like
is the Institute. Those of you, Jenn and Randall. Wait, Jenn, you said you did or didn't finish?
I did read it.
Is that because I know it's a long book? But would you call that not like an ensemble, a big epic ensemble book?
I think you go, Jenn.
I was just say I think there is an ensemble in there, but it's never like to the lengths of it.
Yeah, or like Salem's Lot or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. It tries to have one, but it doesn't quite achieve.
Yeah,
it
doesn't quite work.
Well, let's hope he does it.
Well, he mentions I can't remember. It's a Dear Constant Reader at the beginning of a collection about like recycling the human body recycles itself every 7 years, and so you can look at his work in like kind of 7-year chunks or from like short story collection to short story collection. So I mean, we might be due for another one.
I hope so.
Maybe that's what he's got brewing.
Well,
Sleeping Beauties is a little bit of a long epic, but that's not very good.
But he wrote that one.
I don't know. I don't know anyone who likes that book. I haven't read it, but like I'm kind of
Justin hated it. Like,
yeah.
There's some interesting things in it, but I don't think it's successful for 800 pages.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting an AMC show, so I'm excited for that one. I'm a huge fan of Nosferatu. But
they're just giving out those adaptations like candy at this point.
I know, it's insane. Like literally today, they announced that they're going to do Throttle, which is technically just.
I do like. Yeah, I actually like that collection a lot. The Throttle Joe Hill collection, but
the story Throttle, are they making it into a series?
They're making it a feature adaptation, so it's gonna be like a movie for HBO Max.
Oh, okay, yeah, a movie makes sense. I think it could actually be pretty good. But.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Hey, speaking of adaptations and HBO, Outsider is ostensibly coming back for a second season. It ends with the cliffhanger. With the button at the end with Holly getting scratched. Knowing that we have some source material to work off of with future Holly here with If It Bleeds, do we think that any of this is going to factor into a sequel? What do we think and make of a second season of The Outsider?
I think it's going to go its own direction. I don't think King. I think King might have a hand like a overseeing some kind of role, but I don't think that it's going to incorporate anything from If It Bleeds or anything from King's universe. I think it's going to be its own story.
I would love it if we got like a family sitcom between the two outsiders, call it kissing cousins living together. Yeah,
they put like a roll of tape down the middle of the room.
It's like your side of the fridge, my side of the fridge. You
didn't label the milk.
You didn't label the grief. Oh God, that was my
they're
grief.
both. It's like they keep labeling everything outsider.
It'll just be like an episode of like a later season of Buffy where you just have like a bunch of demons being comical and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we don't know. Well, and we probably won't know for a while, considering the fact that nothing's in production right now, unless you're in the UK, I guess, because I guess they have reopened production in there. I'm sure everyone on the Batman set is really stoked.
Australia is too.
Yeah,
I think they're doing. Yeah,
well,
they're like SNLing.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Maybe they could film Mad Max, the sequel to Fury Road. Anyway, Tom Hardy seems like the guy that would go out there regardless of the germs. But look, this has been fun. I really enjoyed this If It Bleeds run. It's time to close the doors and finders keepers and go our separate ways. Me, I'm gonna go to Monroeville Mall because I'm hoping that the food court's still open because I'm kind of hungry. Everyone, this has been great. Next week is going to be wild because you got Dolores Claiborne. We're going to be going into our Dolores Claiborne coverage, and it is a whopper of an episode. We have a special guest. And should we announce the special guest, Randall?
Yeah. It's our special guest is Anna Marie Cox, who you might know from Crooked Media. She has a podcast there, and she's also a writer for the New York Times. She's primarily a political writer, but she also dabbles in culture content as well. She has a podcast on The Expanse, the Amazon series, and she told us about that a little bit. And she was an absolute delight on the podcast, and it was a pleasure to have her. So stay tuned for that. And then also check out our Patreon. We just wrapped up our 4-part series on the Stand miniseries last week, which was a lot of fun. And we've got more fun content coming on the way, including our first newsletter, as well as some mini-sodes to talk about the latest King news, because there's been more than I would have expected lately.
Yeah, we're gonna have a several mini episodes that are coming up on the Patreon. You gotta look, if you're not on there, you're missing out on some great stuff. In addition to some older episodes, we just unlocked a couple of oldies from 2017. Brought a tear to my eye, just because it's been so long. I love it.
That's crazy.
But follow us on our socials. We're gonna be updating it constantly. We're gonna be doing a live watch. Probably based on our votes on Patreon, Misery. That's the thing. Look, if you're on Patreon, you could dictate what we're doing. You could dictate our topics. You could dictate what we're going to watch. You could literally be the Randall flag to our King's Dominion. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up. But I hope that you enjoyed If It Bleeds. I hope that you've read If It Bleeds, and I hope you've actually read it while listening to this, because we pretty much spoiled all of it. But
yeah.
Do we have any plugs? Does anybody want to, Jen, you kind of already promoted the podcast. What's next on the Horror Virgin?
Our next episode to drop is going to be Paranormal Activity 2, and spoiler, that scared the shit out of Todd.
I think the third one is the scariest for me. That one genuinely scared me.
I think all the first 4 are good. That's my
I think
controversial opinion. Although I think the 5th one is absolute hot garbage.
Yeah, I remember.
That's when I stopped.
Didn't you review? I think you reviewed that for the.
Yeah,
site.
I reviewed it for Consequence of Sound. I gave it a pan, as they say.
Yeah, and that's not Peter Pan and Going to Neverland. Hey, speaking of Neverland, what do we do in Neverland? We sleep. And what does Neverland have? Well, they don't have any days or nights. They just have time as a nonstop wheel, cause a wheel. And that is all to say that we are in our reality, and we have to enjoy long days
and pleasant
nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. We hope you enjoyed this production. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.